So picture this scenario, right? You are walking through the produce section of your local grocery store. You breeze past the familiar bins of apples. You grab a bunch of bananas. Maybe you toss a bag of spinach into your cart. But then you stop.
Right. You just hit a wall.
Yeah, exactly. You are just staring at this neatly stacked pale green pyramid of something that honestly it looks less like a food item and more like a medieval weapon. Or, I don't know, maybe some kind of exotic, heavily armored pine cone.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, for anyone who didn't grow up eating them, it is undeniably the most intimidating item in the entire vegetable aisle. You look at it and you immediately wonder how on earth you are supposed to penetrate those layers.
Yeah, it demands a strategy. You are probably standing there wondering, like, what parts are you even supposed to eat? How do you prep it? And honestly, why should you even bother with something that requires this much tactical effort when you could just, eat a carrot?
Right. A carrot is zero effort.
Exactly. Well, our goal today is to answer all of those questions for you. We have this incredible, custom-tailored deep dive queued up, and it's based on a really fascinating stack of source material that completely breaks down the hidden nutritional profile, the bizarre botany, and the surprisingly ancient history of the globe artichokes.
It's such a great document.
It really is. We are going to demystify this prickly green enigma and prove why it actually deserves a permanent spot in your kitchen rotation. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because to truly understand why humanity goes through the trouble of eating something this difficult, we have to step way back in time and look at how ancient cultures viewed its origins.
Yeah, you really can't separate them. The botany and the mythology of this plant are deeply intertwined. I mean, before we even get to the kitchen, we have to understand what this object physically is. So the globe artichoke goes by the rather formidable scientific name, Cynara cardunculus var scullamus.
That is a mouthful.
It is a mouthful, yeah. But the thing is, it isn't a root vegetable. It isn't a stem. And despite pulling off all those green layers, it isn't a conventional leaf either.
Which I have to say, I found that detail wildly surprising. We are essentially eating an unopened flower bud. Like the artichoke is just this massive domesticated version of a wild Mediterranean thistle.
A giant weed, basically.
Yeah. And if you were to leave that armored globe completely unharvested in a garden, those tough, leathery green outer bracts, the parts we normally just peel away, they would eventually burst open. They give way to these magnificent, really vibrant purple-blue thistle blossoms.
Right. And from a purely visual standpoint, the blossom is absolutely stunning.
Right.
But from a culinary and, well, a therapeutic standpoint, letting it bloom is a total missed opportunity.
Oh, interesting. Why is that?
Because cultivators actually harvest the artichoke tightly closed, right at the peak of its vegetative growth stage.
Yeah.
So snapping it off the stalk before it opens locks in a dense concentration of moisture within that tender flesh. And along with that, you trap these incredibly potent biological compounds that would otherwise just be, spent fueling the flowering process.
Wow, okay. And the ancient Greeks, obviously, they didn't have access to modern botanical terminology or chemistry, but they clearly didn't just see a random weed in the dirt either. They constructed a whole mythology around where this plant actually came from.
It really did.
Yeah, according to the source documents, the very first artichoke was originally a mortal maiden, and her name was Cynara. She was supposedly this stunning woman with hair the color of silver and ash.
Which is such a great detail. Notice how that specific description, the silver and ash hair, it perfectly mirrors the powdery, silvery green hue of the actual plant's leaves in the wild.
Oh, wow. I didn't even put that together. That's so cool. And the storytelling is just so vivid. As the myth goes, Zeus falls deeply in love with Cynara. He sweeps her up to Mount Olympus and elevates her to the status of a full-blown goddess.
But it doesn't last, right?
No, it doesn't. Cynara eventually gets homesick. She misses her mortal family and her old life, so she sneaks back down to the mortal realm just for a quick visit. Well, Zeus finds out, and in a fit of absolute rage over what he perceives as a betrayal, he transforms her. He turns her into a beautiful but prickly, stubborn thistle. He creates the artichoke.
It is a rather tragic origin story, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But it captures the duality of the plant brilliantly. I mean, it is beautiful and enticing, but it actively fights back against anyone trying to consume it.
Yeah, it acts like a heavily armored botanical vault.
Wow.
There is this undeniable nutritional treasure locked away deep inside the center, but it is surrounded by overlapping layers of physical defense, which honestly always brings me back to my main hurdle.
The effort.
Yeah, the effort. Why go through all this effort to eat a thistle when an apple just hands you its nutrition? The apple requires zero work. You just bite into it.
What's fascinating here is how the historical context actually answers that exact question of effort versus reward. The ancient Greeks and Romans did not shy away from the work at all. They held the artichoke in exceptionally high regard. To the elite classes, it wasn't just basic sustenance to fill a stomach, it was a luxury item.
Like caviar or something.
Exactly. It was a status symbol reserved for sophisticated banquets. But more importantly, they actively utilized it as a digestive aid.
Wait, really? They were eating it specifically to settle their stomachs after those massive, crazy Roman feasts?
Yeah, they were. They had a sharp intuitive understanding of its physiological effects. They knew it made them feel better, less bloated, and just more energized after a heavy, rich meal. They lacked the biochemical tools to prove the mechanism, of course, but that ancient intuition bridges perfectly with modern nutritional science. Today, we can look under a microscope and see exactly what they were experiencing.
Which takes us right to the specific treasure that is locked inside that vault we were talking about. Because when I was going through the nutritional breakdown in our research, one specific metric stood out because it totally defies expectations. We were talking about dietary fiber.
Ah, yes. Often considered the unsung workhorse of human health.
Totally unsung. Because when anyone brings up getting more fiber in your diet, the usual suspects always dominate the conversation, right? We hear about eating a bowl of morning oats or black beans or, throwing some chia seeds into a smoothie. But the artichoke is this heavyweight champion that is just operating in total obscurity. A single medium-sized artichoke packs roughly 7 grams of dietary fiber.
Yeah, put that number into perspective for a moment. That one single vegetable accounts for nearly a quarter of your total recommended daily fiber intake. It routinely outperforms those famous fiber staples you just listed.
7 grams is just massive. But I initially thought, okay, 7 grams is great, but I can just eat a big bowl of oatmeal without risking a thorn to the thumb.
Fair point, yeah.
But the research actually makes a massive distinction here. The magic isn't just in the sheer volume of the fiber. It is the specific classification of fiber.
Right, and this is where we cross the line from basic macronutrition into functional biology. The artichoke is densely packed with a unique, soluble prebiotic fiber called inulin.
Inulin, spelled with an I, just to be totally clear, not insulin.
Right, completely different molecules. Inulin belongs to a class of carbohydrates known as fructans. And if we break that term down, a fructan is essentially a long, complex chain of fructose molecules tightly bound together. What makes inulin so incredibly valuable to your health is its structural integrity.
Okay, how so?
Well, human digestive enzymes, the powerful chemicals in your stomach and your small intestine that dissolve proteins and fats, they simply do not have the molecular keys to unlock and break down the chemical bonds of a fructan chain.
Oh, wow. Meaning the inulin basically survives the gauntlet of the upper digestive tract. It just coasts through the stomach acid and the small intestine completely intact.
Exactly. It travels the entire length of your upper GI tract without being absorbed into your bloodstream or broken down for calories. The transformation only happens when it finally arrives in the dark, oxygen-deprived environment of your large intestine.
Because that is where the microscopic residents live.
Trillions of them. Your large intestine hosts a vast, complex ecosystem of microorganisms. When that intact inulin finally arrives, it isn't meant to feed you. It is designed to feed them. Inulin acts as a premium, high-octane fertilizer that selectively fuels the most beneficial bacterial colonies in your gut.
When I was looking through the studies in our sources, I noticed a heavy focus on 2 specific bacterial camps down there, bifidobacteria and lactobacilli. Why do these 2 get all the attention?
Because those are the foundational friendly troops of your microbiome. And as those specific beneficial microbes feast on the inulin, a process we call fermentation, they don't just consume it and do nothing. They produce vital metabolic byproducts. The most critical among them are short-chain fatty acids, commonly abbreviated as SCFAs.
SCFAs, right. The research highlighted 3 of these: butyrate, acetate, and propionate. But I have to admit, seeing a list of chemical names doesn't tell me much on its own. Why do we care so much about these fatty acids?
Think of your colon not just as a tube, but as a living wall of cells, the epithelial cells. These cells require constant energy to maintain their structural integrity. SCFAs, particularly butyrate, act as the primary preferred energy source for these colon cells. The bacteria create the fuel that physically nourishes the walls of your digestive tract.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. If we bring back that armored vault analogy from earlier, eating an artichoke is fundamentally like dropping impenetrable supply crates down to Allied troops stationed deep behind enemy lines in your gut.
Oh, I like that.
Right.
Oh.
Because our own human enzymes can't crack the crates open. We literally cannot digest the inulin. But the crates survive the drop, they land safely in the lower intestine, and those bifidobacteria have the exact tools needed to pry them open. They use the supplies inside to fortify the walls and build a thriving internal ecosystem.
It is a brilliant way to visualize the mechanism, honestly. You are actively cultivating a microscopic garden. And when that barrier is fortified, it prevents pathogens from leaking out of your digestive tract and getting into your bloodstream. But the benefits of fermentation go even further. Our source material notes that this process actually enhances your body's ability to absorb essential minerals, specifically calcium and magnesium.
I found that part confusing, actually. How does feeding bacteria in my colon help my body absorb a mineral like calcium? Because I thought minerals were absorbed but way higher up in the digestive process.
Some are, yeah, but the colon plays a massive role here, and it all comes down to chemistry. When those bacteria ferment the inulin and produce those fatty acids, it physically alters the environment of your colon. It lowers the pH, making the environment slightly more acidic.
Oh, okay. So it's like how vinegar dissolves things more effectively than plain water.
Precisely. That slightly more acidic environment makes minerals like calcium and magnesium much more soluble. It essentially dissolves them into a liquid solution, making it incredibly easy for your colon wall to just sponge them up and send them straight into your bloodstream.
Which provides the perfect transition. Because once those nutrients and compounds hit the bloodstream, they travel directly to the body's primary filtration system right next door. We are talking about the liver. And let me hit you with some data from the United States Department of Agriculture that totally upended how I look at vegetables.
Oh, the USDA antioxidant capacity analysis. It's a fascinating data set.
It really is. So the USDA conducted these comprehensive tests to measure the total antioxidant capacity of various foods, and the artichoke consistently ranks among the highest of all vegetables. We are talking about it frequently outperforming the absolute titans of the superfood world. I mean, it beats blueberries, it beats garlic, it beats red grapes.
Yeah, it quietly dominates the antioxidant charts while all these other foods take all the credit.
Right, and I have to push back on the status quo here for a second. If this prickly, awkward flower is objectively outperforming blueberries and garlic, foods that have massive multi-million-dollar marketing campaigns built entirely around their antioxidant levels, why do they get all the PR? Why does the artichoke just get ignored in the corner of the produce aisle? Is there like a powerful blueberry lobby keeping it down?
A blueberry lobby. I love that.
Yeah.
I doubt there is a conspiracy, though. It mostly just comes down to convenience and immediate gratification. You can grab a handful of blueberries and toss them in your mouth on the way to work. You definitely cannot bite into a raw globe artichoke.
Definitely not.
It demands time. It demands preparation. However, that time investment really pays dividends, largely due to a highly functional bioactive compound it contains called cynerin.
Cynerin. The name obviously ties back to the mythological maiden Cynara.
It does, yeah. Cynerin is a specific type of polyphenol.
And for those of us who aren't chemists, what exactly is a polyphenol?
So a polyphenol is a complex plant molecule. The poly means many, and phenol refers to rings of carbon and hydrogen atoms. In human biology, these specific ring structures are incredible at interacting with our cellular machinery. In the case of cynerin, its primary target is the liver, where it acts as a very powerful stimulant for bile.
Now, wait a minute. If bile is just the digestive fluid my body squirts out to help me process, the greasy pepperoni pizza I ate last night, what does that have to do with detoxifying my blood?
That is a very common misconception. Digestion is only half of bile's job. Yes, it emulsifies and breaks down dietary fats so you can absorb them, but bile is also the liver's primary garbage truck.
Oh, good.
Yeah, when your liver filters out metabolic waste products, environmental toxins, and excess cholesterol from your bloodstream, it packages all of that garbage into the bile. The bile then flows out of the liver into your intestines and literally carries the waste out of your body.
So if your bile flow is sluggish, the garbage trucks are basically just backed up in the depot.
Exactly. If the flow is compromised, your body's ability to clear toxins plummets. Cynerin stimulates both the physiological production of new bile and keeps the flow of it robust and moving. It ensures the transit system stays entirely clear.
Wow, okay. The source material also mentioned two other major antioxidants present in the artichoke, silymarin and chlorogenic acid. It claimed they provide, quote, cellular shielding for the liver. But what does a physical shield actually look like at a microscopic level?
But to understand the shield, you first have to understand the threat, which is oxidative stress. As your liver works around the clock filtering all these toxins, it generates free radicals. These are unstable molecules that are essentially missing an electron. Because they are unstable, they violently bounce around your liver tissue, trying to rip electrons away from your healthy cells. And when they do that, it damages the cell's DNA and its structural walls
Okay, so how do silymarin and chlorogenic acid stop them?
by acting as molecular martyrs, basically. These antioxidants are packed with extra electrons. When a free radical comes barreling toward a healthy liver cell, the silymarin essentially intercepts it. It willingly donates one of its own electrons to the free radical, neutralizing the threat before it can tear into the healthy tissue.
So they act like biological secret service agents.
Yeah.
They see the free radical bullet coming, and they literally dive in front of the healthy liver cell, taking the hit so the organ can keep functioning.
That is a surprisingly accurate way to describe the chemical exchange, actually. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we can really see why this mechanism is so vital today. We live in a world saturated with heavily processed foods, environmental pollutants, and high-stress lifestyles. Our livers are taking an absolute beating.
Right.
So incorporating steamed artichokes or even a concentrated artichoke leaf extract is one of the most effective, completely natural ways to support your body's innate detoxification pathways. You are handing your liver the exact biochemical tools it needs to clean your blood and defend itself from the resulting stress.
It's just an incredible journey, honestly. We start with a Greek myth about a girl transformed into a thistle by an angry god, and we somehow end up with a masterclass in functional cellular nutrition.
Yeah, the elite Romans used it simply to feel better after a feast. But today, we have the science to show it's the inulin feeding the microbiome, the cynurin flushing the bile, and the silymarin taking those molecular bullets.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, the next time you are standing in the grocery store? First and foremost, do not let the thorny, medieval appearance of the artichoke intimidate you anymore. You absolutely do not need a culinary arts degree to extract these benefits.
No, the preparation process is remarkably straightforward once you understand what you're actually trying to access.
Just steam it. That is the easiest entry point. You just steam the entire artichoke in a pot with a little water until you can effortlessly pull one of the outer green leaves away with your fingers. Then you take that leaf, you dip the fleshy base into a little melted butter, some high-quality olive oil, or maybe the lemon garlic aioli, and you just scrape that tender, nutrient-dense flesh off the leaf with your front teeth. You discard the tough, fibrous outer shell.
And it becomes this deeply satisfying, interactive eating experience. As you methodically work your way through the botanical armor, peeling away layer after layer, you are eventually rewarded with the absolute center of the plant.
The prized artichoke heart.
Exactly.
It is the softest, most culinary versatile part of the plant, and it's completely saturated with all those prebiotic inulin fibers and liver-protecting antioxidants we just spent the last 20 minutes unpacking. It is experiential eating with a massive biological payoff.
This raises an important question, though, or rather, a conceptual shift I want you to take with you long after this deep dive ends.
Oh, I love a good paradigm shift. Lay it on us.
Think back to the botany we discussed in our very first segment. When you sit down at your kitchen table and eat an artichoke, you are literally consuming a flower that was intercepted before it could bloom.
Because the cultivators snap it off the stalk while it's still tightly closed?
Correct. If that plant had been left alone in the Mediterranean dirt, it would have utilized a massive concentrated amount of biological energy to push those bracts open and explode into a vibrant purple-blue blossom. All of that intense therapeutic power, the dense fructan chains of inulin, the cynurin, the elite Secret Service antioxidants, all of that is the stored potential energy of a magnificent blossoming event that simply never happened.
Wow. I have never thought about a vegetable that way.
So consider this. Every single time you eat an artichoke, you are taking that trapped biological potential from nature, and you are transferring it directly into your own body. You're using the suppressed energy of a flower to fuel your own thriving internal ecosystem.
That is a profoundly beautiful way to look at it. You are eating stored potential. Next time you see that thorny green pine cone stacked high in the produce aisle, I guarantee you won't just walk past it to grab the apples. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you on the next one.